Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Sharmini Pires coming to you from Baltimore. The National Union of Metal Workers South Africa, Numsa, went on strike last week. Will the union be able to hold out? Thus far, talks to end the wage deadlock in the metal and engineering industry failed to produce a solution. To give us more information and analysis on the ground is Patrick Bond. Patrick Bond is the director of the Center for Civil Society and professor at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. Bond is the author of the recently released books, South Africa, The Present is History, co-authored with John Saul, and Elite Transition. Patrick, thanks for joining us.
Back again, Sharmini, thanks.
Patrick, start off by giving us a bit of a primer. Who is Numsa? What are they fighting for? What are the demands, and who are their affiliates?
This is a very important union, about 30 years old formally, certainly at the very vanguard of trade unionism all these last decades, fighting not only for the end of apartheid in the 80s with a leader called Moses Mayakisa, very well known in anti-apartheid circuits, but then in the 90s, and especially in the last couple of years, really leading the COSATA, Congress of South African Trade Unions, as now the largest affiliate with 440,000 members, to socialist demands, especially demands that conflict with the ruling party, African National Congress, neoliberal macro policies, and relatively conservative labor policies, such as the policy to introduce sub-minimum wages for young workers and to allow labor broking, casualized labor, which are very much subjects of this strike, a strike of about half the workforce, 220,000. And they're basically taking on 10,000 employers who have a federation. And the debate is whether Numsa can repeat last month's extraordinary victory by the platinum workers who won 18 to 20% wage increases. Numsa's asking for 15, the employers offering 8, with inflation just under 7%. So going to be at least another week of heavy striking.
Right, Patrick, one of the struggles is really the ANC and the current government, who is in collaboration with the employers and supporting the employers in this wage dispute. Is that correct?
Indeed, there's been some very intense language from leaders of the ruling party, including the Deputy Secretary General, Jesse Duarte, who openly called these workers counter-revolutionaries. The head of the Communist Party has as well. South Africa has a tendency for a left rhetoric to emerge in the traditions of sort of capital C communism, especially when there are challenges from the left, from independent workers and community groups, social movements. And this is no exception. What with the AMCU, the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union, having such momentum after a 5-month strike restored to the working class, now Numsa takes up the baton. And Numsa's very openly said that they are breaking with the African National Congress after an alliance dating to 1990 when the ANC was unbanned. And what Numsa said lies ahead. After the strike is won, they expect to have at least double-digit wage increases from putting so many workers out on strike. What they expect now is to then build a united front with social movements and community groups, environmentalists, women's groups, and so forth. And then, with their so-called movement towards socialism, probably next year, launch a workers' party to contest the 2016 municipal elections. So it's quite an exciting period ahead. And part of it depends on whether this is a big strike victory or whether the ANC clamps down themselves under pressure from international finance. A recent threat from Moody's rating agency after a downgrade by Standard & Poor's, it may well be that South Africa is reduced to what's called junk bond status by these international financial agencies.
So this is really a multi-level struggle, one for wages, workers' rights, in terms of the, formation of an alternative party in South Africa. And is this strike then gaining momentum, in your opinion?
Yes, I think the big question is whether the strike is over in a week or 2 weeks, or perhaps it will last longer. And then what will happen probably soon thereafter, a decision as to whether these metal workers stay in the larger federation. And if they have actually won a major increase, 3-4% above inflation, then they will be a very attractive union for many independent workers or workers from other unions to join them. They are now recruiting poaching. They are accused of poaching from other unions and opening up the metal workers sector to really any trade unionists wanting to join. And if that happens, that could become a super union, especially if there's at some stage a merger with AMCU. And then you've got really a mighty trade union with extraordinary militancy in a country already rated by the World Economic Forum as having the world's most militant working class of 148 countries surveyed. So we do see at this stage quite rapid advances by the working class, especially in the wake of the big wage gains. In spite of having lost 5 months of salary, these platinum mine workers have really apparently encouraged the metal workers there. Many of them are saying, if the platinum workers can do it, then we can also stay out long enough to win the wage increases and the changes in conditions so that the casualized workers, labor brokers, are no longer such a threat to the organized workers.
Numsa seems to be in somehow some contestations with COSATA as well, yes?
Yes, the struggle over who can control COSATA is intense, and it was a bit of a surprise when Vavi, Zolenzima Vavi, the general secretary of COSATA, strongly supported by the Numsa leadership, was actually allowed to resume his job after a 9-month leave that was occasioned by a sex scandal in the office. And Numsa pushed very hard that he be put back as the general secretary with the hope that that would encourage the more left-leaning unions to really have a contestation over the direction of COSATA. However, the more conservative forces that are aligned with President Jacob Zuma in the African National Congress probably have a majority of leadership in the COSATA unions, and it is probably just a matter of time before they succeed in throwing out Numsa for having broken some of the basic rules. Don't organize in other people's turf. And because Numsa feels the trade unions, especially in the transport sector, which could be quite critical, especially in the ports, where there's a major contestation in one of the major port cities, Port Elizabeth. General Motors in Port Elizabeth, incidentally, has just shut down its production because the metal workers have cut off the parts and supplies. And these are the sorts of places, a little bit off the map of the major cities, where I think the heart and soul of trade union is to be won. And it does appear that Numsa is winning these battles.
Well, Patrick, this is an ongoing discussion. Please come back and give us more updates on what's happening in South Africa and in these union struggles. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.